So still, if you're asking why you have to adopt ROS, I'll just list down some more points for you. Okay, mainly for code reusability. Like I said before, you don't have to reinvent wheel every time you do a project. Even I see some projects just trying or asking for seniors for their previous year project and just copying it and doing it. It's okay, but I think it should be done like you have to introduce a new layer to it. If you are reusing a project, you have to add your own functionalities. Actually, ROS is that allows you to add these extra functionalities on an existing system. Okay, so you can reuse an entire bot and add your own functionalities to it. Okay, and it's a distributed framework of processes. Like I said, there's many sensors, many processes, even actuators like motors and pneumatic actuators like that. So you have to maintain their processes. So each program, each individual program will be treated as nodes. So these nodes will be communicating with each other to perform the tasks which you designed. Okay. Also, ROS is language independence. So I hope you guys are learning at least a single programming language. As an AC student, for our batch, it wasn't much focused on that, but I strongly recommend you study or learn Python or C++. I would for your even starting from your first years. So it will be really helpful. If not for learning ROS, it will be really helpful for your placements and all. Okay. So yes, it's easy for testing. So if you made a ROS package, you made a robot, you just for testing purpose, you just have to send those files to your friends, and they just have to run it, and they can recreate your problems, or they can experience your new features. Okay. So that's all about why. So just sharing few little bit of histories of ROS. I know it could be boring, but actually I think this is very exciting. Okay, so it all began in 2007 by a small group of researchers. Okay, in Stanford, they were small. So this little bot, PR2, this was the first bot they made as a research project. And this bot was called PR2, Personal Robot 2. So they actually made recently they made a documentary of ROS and how it came about. I have linked the videos in this file. So I'll be actually sharing this file with your tutors so that you can read this fully or you can watch the video later. Okay. So main points I want to focus is that ROS is also a academic side project. It was not a main project, it was a side project. Why? Because they want to do their main project. So in order to help that main project, they were creating something, a tool. Okay, some kind of tool. So that was an interesting part. And they started, and after it got somewhat traction, they started an internship program. Okay, so they invited students from other colleges like MIT, Stanford, like that, and they offered this internship program so that their free times students could learn this and include that in their projects. So they found it super easy to spread it around the globe. So the next point was mainly introduction about Gazebo, a revolutionary software, simulation software. So we need to I think the preconception is that robotics or learning robotics will be expensive. Like you need to buy Raspberry Pi or even cheaper Arduino, but you need to buy a lot kind of motors, batteries, and all those mechanical hardware stuffs. And you will be like thinking maybe it's too expensive to study. So the simulator actually makes it easy for you to learn robotics and simulate your robots in the real life environment. Okay, so actually this simulator, when it was introduced, I think it's 2011, NASA actually published an open event. That is, they were trying to launch a robot which is called Robonaut, and they were challenging developers to provide innovative solutions to automate the robot. So this team were, as ROS was open source, everything was available for everyone. Okay, so a single guy, usually this kind of challenges were is approached by a group of 20 or plus students or developers. Using Gazebo and ROS, a single guy who is a house dad, who is raising his children, and he's a part-time lecturer. He actually competed and actually won that competition. So it's actually really inspiring that ROS could provide this much power to a single person to develop or contribute to the robotics community. So if you see at the official ROS page, you can see where it all began in a timeline view. Okay, so it all started in Stanford, and the Willow Garage was started, and like that, many events in timeline is shown. So if you're interested, you can just skip through that. Okay, then we'll talk about distributions. So what are distributions? They are actually, I think you have already guessed it, just a version set of ROS packages. So like Linux operating system has many distributions like Ubuntu, Arch Linux, Fedora, like that. Even Windows Vista XP, like that. ROS also has different distributions. So the main purpose is to let developers develop in a relatively stable code base. Okay, so as you can see, these are the ROS1 distributions. It follows an alphabetical pattern. Like first version was not named. The next versions was alphabetical order: Box Turtle, Sea Turtle, Diamondback Launch, like that. Everything is alphabetical order, and the latest edition is Noetic. And there's also a ROS2 version. ROS2 version is recently released a version, and the recommended one is Foxy. So you might be thinking, if there is already ROS1, why not extend ROS1 up to Z and then introduce ROS2? So actually ROS1 has a few flaws that we'll be addressing further. Okay, and we have provided the link. If you want to check out more about the distributions, you can check out. So if you notice the pattern, it's always more turtles. So actually someone asked this question to the ROS creators in 2011, I think. So they answered it in a fun way, like if we name alphabetical order, there'll be more versions. They like turtles, and meaning double meaning of world carried by a turtle. Like that, they provided some interesting descriptions why they opted the name, and still it is opted. Okay, so like I said, why ROS2 and why not enhance ROS1? Many were angry about this, especially students and early adopters. But there's actually a big reason for that. Like I said, big reason. Not going to read this entirely. So I'll be summarizing what the points. Actually, ROS1 was developed keeping in mind that it is a research project. Okay, so you need to develop robots which can be used in research only and not deployment and production purpose. So there was many security issues they didn't address. So ROS2 is mainly for using ROS as a development, research, prototyping, and production platform. So the code and the programs you use to develop and prototype will be directly used for the deployment and production. So that's very useful actually. So that's why ROS2 was introduced. I have given a brief explanation for each points. If you are interested, you can read those. Okay. So just basic differences between ROS 1 and ROS 2, what the platforms they support. Actually, ROS 1 doesn't actually natively support Windows. ROS 2 now supports Windows, Mac, and Ubuntu. Previous version uses older version of C++. ROS 2 uses everything new, everything modern, everything flexible. Okay, so that's it. If you want to read further, you can read. I'll share a link. Okay, so the question rises, what should I choose, ROS 1 or ROS 2? Till now, you think ROS 2 is really useful and better than ROS 1. But actually, the inception of ROS 2 is very recent, and it depends on who you are. Okay, if you are a student, it's better you stick on to ROS 1 because there's lack of compatibility of software packages. So you won't be needing ROS 2 entirely for your college projects or even some research projects. If you are professors, ROS 1 is actually good. It has many resources. But if you are wanting to take advantage of latest abilities of ROS 2, you might want to look into ROS 2. And researchers depends on their paper and thesis. Companies and manufacturers are highly recommended to shift to ROS 2 as soon as possible, as ROS 2 addresses mainly their problems, that is security, stability, and things like that. Scalability. Okay. So students, it's better to stick with ROS 2, ROS 1 for a while, at least till 2025, because the ROS 1's latest version will expire on 2025, and after 2025, everyone must learn ROS 2. Okay. So I hope these are just introductory part and overall view of ROS, and I'll just tell you about the basic concepts used. Okay. This is mainly focused on ROS 1, okay, not ROS 2. So ROS 1, as I said, each program will be treated as a node, okay, which is the minimum unit of executable program, so that they can be used multiple times. So each node will be transferring messages. There are many type of message communications. These are the communications used in ROS. Okay, so imagine a sensor like an IMU encoder, motor encoder, or a IMU sensor. So it actually sensor actually sends the orientation. Okay, orientation and position. So X, Y, and theta. So what SLAM is another package. It is used for mapping an unknown environment using laser sensor or other depth sensors. So this odometry package will be a publisher to the subscriber of SLAM package, and the topic will be subscribed by the subscriber. It's like a simple postal service. You are subscribing to a mailing list. You will get constant information if you have subscribed to the topic. Also, it is a only unidirectional. If another type is service, it is bidirectional. I think these networking topologies are pretty easy to catch up for ECE students, so I don't need to explain what what they do. Action server is bidirectional, and they like you say command to a robot, go to this position and do these things, like multiple commands, and it is actually handled by action messages, action communication. So if you say that, it will perform the actions, and while performing that actions, it will provide you a feedback that these all things are happening, please wait, or these are the status, and after everything is completed, it will send a success message. Okay, so that's actually the simple communication between nodes. So everything is handled by these nodes are actually managed by a ROS master. Okay, he's like he's the top level guy. Okay, main boss. He handles everything. So every node has to be connected to the master, and the master is actually orchestrating these nodes. So this master has to be run first before launching other nodes. So the nodes will be communicating within each other, and the status of each nodes will be sent to the ROS master. Okay. So this is again I'm repeating, this is ROS 1's architecture, and ROS 2 actually doesn't use this architecture. ROS 2 is doesn't have any master. It's based on a graph theory, a graph of nodes. Okay, so these are the basics of ROS communication that you need to know. I can go deeper, but as it's 3:30, already half an hour gone. So if you want, you can search study on these topics based on the keywords I provide. Okay. So these are basic concepts. So actually, now you get an overall idea of the communication aspect, what is was, why it is used. Okay. So now you want to know how you make a physical thing into a real world. Okay, a physical thing like a wheel robot or a actuator using manipulator, like an arm, like that. So how it is represented in robotics operating system? So robots are actually represented using a format called URDF format. It's actually abbreviated as Universal Robotics Description Format. It is a standard opted by ROS, which uses XML as a basic standard to use in robotics platform. So I'll just show you. Okay, XML is a simple language. It's actually easy to organize and change. It is highly readable, not like any cryptic complex code. So this is the format which is used by ROS. So if you made a robot, it will have a URDF model which will mention what is its basic shape, or how those shapes are linked. If it is a sensor, you don't need to have a camera, you don't need to have a depth sensor, a kinet sensor, or a Intel RealSense, like that kind of expensive sensors which cost even lakhs to test out them. Okay, this is the main catch of the ROS. You can use industry grade algorithms and sensors with your just laptop. Okay, so to just give you an overview, I'll just show it in simulation. So as I mentioned before, this was the simulator which they introduced in 2014. I think I'm not sure about the year. So this is the simulator. So inside the simulator, for example, let's import some robot. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Is this clear? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I'll just continue. So it's just this is just an example. This is an example board. You can see it has two wheels, and the front two wheels are free to move, and the back two wheels are connected to a motor. Okay. So that is this is just a differential drive. Okay. As you can see, if you just see the model. Oh. Every model is just connected by some basic links. Okay, if you have a physical model, it will be represented as links. Okay, if I press base footprint, you can see that the entire body is selected, or the middle part is the base link. Okay, if I select the left wheel is bounded. So these are our links. Okay, they are like physical components of a board. And what links are multiple links are actually attached one another with joints to form the robots. Just like a manipulator arm, you consider each joint, each part as a link, and you connect them with joints. Simple actually. So these are the just visualization to show you the URDF links. So if you observe, this is the wheel link. So we can see that it is connected to the body via joint left. Okay, and if you notice, it has This is currently actually simulating a real world in some sense without much graphics. So if I pause the simulation and choose to lift the boat, it will just be still in the air. So if I play the simulation, it will just fall. So this is configured to have Earth's gravity. Okay, like that we can include many other physical parameters into this simulator. So if what you are actually seeing is a visual representation, which is called meshes. So that is the visual representation. If you see this red line bounding box, that's actually the bounding collision boundary. So if you want to view the collision boundaries, if you see that, you can actually notice that the collision boundary of wheel is actually a sphere. So the complex meshes are actually abstracted to simpler shapes, so that when you are simulating the robot in the simulator, the computations of simpler basic shapes are actually quite easy. If you have a curve and complicated meshes, it can complicate the computation. So what you see is this visual thing, but what actually the simulator sees is this collision boundaries, and it will consider this collision boundary as its main boundary. Okay, so I'll just close it. So that's basically about the URDF, and you can see that it's just connected to the joint. Multiple links are connected via joints, and it will having a naming convention like the most basic and basic link will be the parent link, and other links will be the child links. In the previous example, you saw the base footprint is the parent link, and the wheels are the child link. Okay. And if you want, I have another example. This is just, this is not actually a robot, physically implemented robot, but it is just a research robot, and this is just a URDF. So you can see that this is actually, every joints are being published with some random values to give this demo. Okay, so you can see every hip joints are being published with random joints to show that it is having this kind of freedom. Okay, so you can actually grab and move and view how much degree of freedom. These joints actually have 360 degree of freedom, so they can move, but these joints may not have 360. This is stuck right about here. Okay, like this you can also define limits for the joint, because it's completely depend upon your design and the actuator you use. Okay, so this is just an example to show that each joint must has a limit, and when you publish commands for that particular joint, these limits will be the constraints to be considered. Okay. So for controlling robots like these, we might actually need good knowledge of, mainly need good knowledge of kinematics, mechanics, and mostly more mathematical stuff related to matrix operations. Okay, if you have to be really familiar with matrix operations. I think you guys are MATLAB, I think. So MATLAB is basically doing matrix operations. So for robotics, and especially for these kind of robots, every frame will be having their own transformation matrix, which will be communicating with the ROS node, and these are controlled by the ROS master. Okay, so there are actually two types to control robots like this. That is forward kinematics and inverse kinematics. It's actually a deeper concept. I'll just mention what they actually do. So forward kinematics is actually, if you want to move to this position, you have to publish this joint will have to move this degree, this joint will have to move this degree, this joint will have to move like this, and this joint will have to move like this. Okay, So the code must mention to this ROS node that every joint must go to particular angle to achieve this endpoint. Okay, that is actually forward kinematics, straightforward. Inverse kinematics is actually the reverse of it. That is, if you want to go to this point, you just give that point coordinates alone. Okay, the computation will be performed so that every joint's respective angles will be calculated by the ROS node. So you just have to point to it and it will actually compute the angles and it will rearrange the model. So I'll just have show you a small inverse kinematics solver. Okay. Actually, I'll open in another window. It will be much easier. So you now you guys can see the same model. Okay, but this model is actually rigged for inverse kinematics. So this is actually a closed chain inverse kinematics. So what I explained earlier can be demoed with this symbol. So symbol demo. So if you see, if you just try to move this arrow, the every joints will be automatically computed to move in that direction. Okay, like that you can move those joints if you complete the inverse kinematics of the robot. Okay, there are also actually this inverse kinematics is very useful in robotics manipulators. So if you have developed a robotic arm or manipulator, if you completed the inverse kinematic solver, you can actually just point it to the direction and it will easily move to that direction, solving the mathematics. Okay, this is purely core max and core transformation matrix. So this might seem cool, but in order to achieve this, you have to really dig deep on the mathematical concepts involving this. I'm just introducing you these demos so that you guys get excited to learn this stuff. Okay, so that's about a kinematics over. Mm, what else? Okay, so those are the URDF concepts. So you, 342. Okay, I'll just show you guys a simple demos with rows. So the Turtle Sim is actually a introductory package which anyone can use. Will actually get you started with how you want to get familiarized with the basics. Okay, now actually I ran the ROS core, which will start the ROS master. Okay, so now let's run ROS. Okay. So if I hit enter, you can see that a window pops up showing turtle sim and a little turtle inside. And it will mention a turtle sim is starting, this turtle is spawned, and it will give the coordinates. Okay, so you can actually see what is happening under the hood using other ROS tools also. So let me launch another. Mm, Okay, so now I have launched a command to establish a node for controlling this little turtle. So I can use my arrow keys to control it. So if I press forward button, the turtle will actually move forward, turn, move up, turn, down. So this is actually a small thing, small program to demonstrate simple mechanisms and rows. So if, like I said, these are all handled by ROS master, which are again delegated to nodes, and these nodes are communicating with each other, publishing, subscribing commands within them. So if you want to view the topics which is used by the ROS, you can just type this, and you can see that the command velocity. This is actually the topic which is used for by the keyboard to communicate with the ROS simulation to publish the commands. Okay. So if you want to view the graphical representation between those nodes, you can also do that with this. Okay, so as you can see, this graph will show that you are running a Turtle1 simulation, and under that you are using a Turtle command velocity, and the teleop, which is this node, is actually publishing to the command velocity topic, and Turtle sim, which is the other node, this is the blue node, which is subscribing to the command velocity topic. So ROS is actually facilitating this communication, and you can use these little tools to look what is under the hood. Okay, this simple demo. Okay, so what actually happened was the ROS master was running, the ROS core was managing my commands from the keyboard. Message was passed via command velocity, and the board moved. So this is actually what happens in any bot if you use ROS. Okay, if you have sensors, there will be another node for sensors, and those sensors will be communicating within each other, and they will be having a feedback mechanism like that, like that. It will happen. Okay. So next, Turtleboard 3. So Turtleboard 3 is actually a robot made for educational purpose. There is two variants, waffle and burger. So you can actually use Turtlebot for this is actually actual hardware, and they have made the simulation available open source for you to learn even without the hardware. Okay. So if you want to launch, I'll just launch the Turtleboard to show you guys. So this will launch the Turtlebot inside a world inside Gazebo. So this is just a demo world which is created inside Gazebo. And as you can see, the robot is right there. This is the Turtlebot burger. And the thing that is on top of it is a LiDAR sensor, which will rotate constantly, has a LiDAR, and it will be used for localization. That is to know where it is situated inside this virtual world. Okay. And if you launch, like similar to the previous thing, if you launch the teleop, will also be used to control it. Okay. So it shows you can control your telebot with WASD, like just in games. If I press W, you can see that a linear velocity, the current speed is published, and angular velocity is 0. So if I if I want to increase the speed, I have to press W, hold the W, and it will increase. And if I press K, it will stop. If I want to turn like that, I can just play around with it just like a game. Okay. So if you see the what is happening under the hood for this thing, it will be actually like this. A gazebo is running, a Turtlebot teleop is running, it is publishing to command velocity via gazebo, and gazebo is communicating to the model. Okay. So this is actually not just for teleop control. It can be also used for autonomous navigation. Yes, this bot is as it has. Let me show you. This model actually has a controller defined and an IMU plug-in, also a lidar sensor. So these are the minimum requirements for a robot to be autonomous. Okay, so if you want to do autonomous tasks, like you have to publish a point and you have to navigate to that point autonomously without using your without giving your control, there are various algorithms like A star algorithm. Many algorithms are there available for you to use. It depends upon the use case. So I'll be just showing you a little demo of that. Navigation. Boat navigation. Okay. Okay. Let me just. Okay. So we can see that another tool has popped up. So we have the same ground map of this same layout, and we have our robot around here. So we have to initially provide the approximate location of our robot. So we can say that our robot is approximately around here. So we'll say that it's around here, and it will actually change its position. So now if you want to say robot to go to another point, you just have to point it where to go. So if I say like go to this location, you can see it is moving. So it's actually autonomously path planning and executing that path fully autonomously. I'm not giving any control. It is actually moving by itself. Okay, this actually is the core concepts of, you could say, self-driving cars, because cars has many expensive sensors and multiple channel lidars, and it is surrounded by cameras, and they essentially perform tasks similar to this. Okay, so if you want, you can provide obstacles, or maybe if I give another goal point like go to here, it will plan to go there. So if I plant an obstacle there, you can see that it change its path real time. So you can see that it will just stop and it will be thinking, and you can see that it has got new plan and it wants to execute that plan continuously. So if I delete this point, it will actually replan the trajectory and it will go to that point. Okay, so robots like this can be seen expensive, but actually these bots can be implemented for your college projects and could be easily completed within 6 months. But you have to have good guidance, and you have to be really prepared to search on new things, study new things, and do extra activities. So I during my final year, we were very concentrated on completing the mechanical part. So actually, even now you guys are stuck during COVID, so you don't have. I hope you don't have to present a physical project. So even without buying Raspberry Pi or any other expensive components, you can actually complete. If your project is a robotics project, you can actually complete everything using this tool. So that's why I think this will be more helpful for you. Okay. So, do we have time? I actually planned, if you want, I can also show you. Uh, okay, there is time. Okay, there's only 5 minutes. I was actually hoping to show you other demos also using drone and quadruple. If you want, I can. 5 minutes is there. Let me try. Uh, so you guys must be familiar with this robot, I think. Mhm. Yes. Okay. So this is actually the spot menu of Boston Dynamics. They have actually outsourced this package for everyone to actually develop their hardware. So you can, if you are familiar with ROS, you can actually go straight into a industry used product, and you can actually give that product extra functionalities. Okay, so they have ROS also works closely with the industries, and even in Boston Dynamics and many other robotics company, they use ROS for developing their robots and prototyping. Okay, so just like how you controlled that little turtle boat, you can actually control the spot also. Okay, and as you can see, it also has a lidar mounted on it, so it can also perform the previous task, autonomous tasks that I explained to you. Okay, it's actually the same thing but with legs, I guess. Okay, so I think we don't have time for drone. I'll skip that. Okay, the drone is also possible. Mhm. So I just want to mention where all ROS is used. ROS is actually used everywhere. It's used in space. If you see NASA's upcoming project, which is the Viper, which is the lunar project, they have actually planned to use the ROS as their main thing, main control source. So creating buildings open source code. If you can see, I think it's about somewhere here. Yeah. Rather than creating custom node, rover flights, and ground-based software, they will make use of open source software, key components adapted from robotic operating systems too, which is widely used from every vacuum cleaners to autonomous drones and self-driving cars. So even NASA is planning for using ROS to go to moon. Okay. And in agriculture it is used, in military, in healthcare. If you want to know which all companies are associated with ROS, actually many companies listed around here like BMW, Bosch, Adling, Siemens, Yakusawa, Ubuntu, and even universities are associated with ROS to develop ROS for industrial applications. Okay, so with this link, can also browse through the. Actually, I forgot to mention this is the 10th year of Ross. So Ross is actually a 10-year-old kid. So they're celebrating that. If you go to this website, you can see what are all robots are in Ross's catalogs. You can actually browse by categories if you want. If you just select, and it will show the robots which are available. If you you just go to their website links, you can view their documentation and you can actually use them inside simulations. Okay. So for career opportunities, I think by now you might have got an idea. It's actually very good to know ROS if you before completing your BTech. For example, I just few listed few companies with the links of their career pages. If you are interested, like Bosch, this is actually Bangalore division, I think. So they actually prefer development using ROS environment. As you can see, ROS and ROS Gazebo. And like that, other companies also preferring ROS. As if you learn this, you can have an upper hand in getting into core robotics companies. Okay. Oh, 1 minute. Okay. Completed. So that's it. I'll just stop the sharing.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. So yeah.
If the participants have any doubts or queries, you may ask or you may post it in the chat box.
Yeah, I'll be sharing this page's link with your tutor. If you want, you can use it. Does anyone have any questions? So also forgot to mention, if you are interested in ROS, we can actually support you. We are actually planning an a tech side division for helping you guys getting familiarized with ROS and also help you guide in your robotics projects. It's called ROSversity. I'll be sending that details also via your tutors. So if you guys need any help in learning ROS, we can actually guide you. If you want any further workshops for second years and third years especially, we can help you guide in that. Okay.
Participants may please fill the feedback form posted on the chat box as they are considered for attendance. If there are no queries, then we'll move on to the next section. I invite Lakshmi for the vote of thanks.
Good evening, all. Coming to the end of today's webinar, I would like to thank the vibrant orator, Mr. Kamal Nathan N, for giving us so much of information on the scope of robotics. I'm very well sure that we all have got some insights on it. Once again, thank you, sir. I would like to thank our head of department, Dr. Gopakumar sir, for giving us this talk, which had been really knowledgeable. Next, I would like to thank Sridiya Miss for the immense support and help throughout the event, and also the student coordinators for arranging this program. Last but not the least, I thank all our participants across the different branches who joined with us for today's talk. I'm sure you all are walking out with some thoughts induced in you. Before we wind up, we wish to give a small virtual memento as a token of appreciation. Once again, thank you, sir, and thank you all.